red tracking camera. Once again, the crew, they're slowing down from the orbital velocity of 17,500 miles per hour. That heat shield is utilizing the Earth's atmosphere to help slow the vehicle down.
So this is the first of mission to ISS, I believe.
Once again, we are in an expected loss of signal, or LOS period. Essentially, we're not able to receive any communication from the crew at this point in time, but as I said before, expected. The crew knows that. The teams on the ground here know that.
Right, and that was one of the critical roles earlier of getting acquisition.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check.
We're still in the period of just early back, so just
Lots of clear, Sarah. Crew's doing fine.
Okay, well, my father through the back
Yeah,
end.
great to hear from you.
All right, there we heard the voice of Commander MLA, Michael Lopez Alegria. They're just confirming that the crew, they're doing good.
Right on schedule, too.
Yeah. As we mentioned before, the external temperature of the capsule is about 3,500 degrees as it, makes its way through the Earth's atmosphere, but the crew, they're comfortable inside.
Dragon, you can expect automated parachute deploy at standard altitude.
Copy that, sir.
All right, so just a heads up there to the crew, they can expect to feel those initial drogue parachutes deploy.
Right.
As I was saying before, the crew's comfortable. While the exterior of the capsule is warming up, we are purging the internal cabin and their suits with nitrox or nitrogen oxygen mixture to keep them comfortable and cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, as we're waiting for confirmation that Dragon chutes have deployed, just prior to the deployment of the initial drogue chutes, Dragon will automatically safe the propulsion system. Dragon then deploys its drogue parachutes to stabilize and decelerate the vehicle, like you mentioned earlier, Kate.
Now, just before the deployment of those drogue parachutes, seats automatically rotate 26 degrees to keep the crew within acceptable or G limits for entry and landing. Without the drogue chutes, we would have to make the mains 3 times stronger and heavier. And of course, everything about spaceflight is about weight.
Right.
So
Dragon SpaceX, brace for drogue window.
Just let's remove them. Can to deploy the drogue chutes?
just a couple moments here until those drogue parachutes are released. Shortly after the drogues are released, we'll see the release of the main parachutes, which help to further decelerate the vehicle and allow the vehicle to proceed safely to the splashdown zone in the Atlantic Ocean. The vehicle's velocity at drogue deployment is about 350 miles per hour. They deploy at about 18,000 feet.
Yes, that's it.
From that deploy, it's a pretty quick succession of events, right? We deploy the drogues very quickly after.
Okay, there it goes.
We're seeing the drogues deploy now.
Live view from onboard Dragon Endeavour of those drogue parachutes. Capsule's going about 350 miles per hour.
Nominal descent rate for 2 healthy drogues.
There it goes.
Copy, sir.
It's what you love to hear from inside the capsule.
Exactly.
Because unfortunately they can't see the parachutes, so to hear that call out that their drogues are healthy, it's great news. So there's a better shot of those drogue parachutes from our tracking camera.
And having that single voice at the core, talking to crew, letting crew know that they're going into a planned LOS, and then coming back. All right.
Okay, that's the ones.
All right, so
We have
visual
on 4 mains.
So there we heard that confirmation of 4 mains deploying.
And descent nominal.
Gorgeous shot of those 4 main parachutes.
1,000 meters.
Copy 1,000 meters.
So just the crew reporting that they're only 1,000 meters from splashdown.
Right.
Landing in water is simpler, therefore more reliable, and it provides more margin against unlikely parachute issues. You know, we had to learn how to make Dragon waterproof, but once you do, that's it. It's a rinse, review, reuse type process.
$800 meters.
Copy 800.
Good.
Once again, our Axiom 1 crew
Everything's
is
going
targeting a
just
splashdown in
right.
the Atlantic Ocean at our Jacksonville recovery zone. The recovery teams are in the area waiting for that splashdown confirmation.
Scheduled for about 2 minutes from now, according to our clocks.
600 meters.
Copy 600.
So we can see that capsule there, as I mentioned before, you know, when we saw it on station and of course during launch, it was pure white. It is no longer.
Right.
We now have really a beautiful shot of that toasted marshmallow. You know, that thermal protection, those thermal protection systems,
Right.
you know, keep the crew safe.
Copy 400.
And like you said, you know, that's a testament to the design of the vehicle doing exactly what it was designed to do and what it has to do to do it safely. And like you said, rinse, reuse, right? It's all part of reusable spaceflight.
First live view of our crew there from inside the Dragon capsule now that they have re-entered the Earth's atmosphere.
200 meters, bracing for impact.
Copy bracing.
I think I see that zero-G indicator in the lap of Mission Specialist Mark Pathy there.
That's right.
And there's the capsule.
The crew is looking comfortable in their view that we saw there, ready to splash down in just a few moments from now. Right now, I think those parachutes slowed the vehicle down to about, is that
About 15 miles per hour, yep.
Oh, it's not clapping, there's no focus there on that. No, we're very well to splash.
As you can tell by the cheers behind us, we can confirm that the Dragon capsule with the AX-1 crew has splashed down. Dragon Endeavour has returned home with the Axiom 1 crew.
Dragon SpaceX, we see splashdown and mains cut.
We concur.
The SpaceX recovery ship and team that you see there on your screen has been waiting for Dragon to splash down, and they're now making their way to that location.
On behalf of the entire SpaceX team, welcome back to planet Earth. The Axiom 1 mission marks the beginning of a new paradigm for human spaceflight. We hope you enjoyed the extra few days in space, and thanks for choosing to fly with SpaceX.
Other choices.
Sarah, to you, Ken, the team, and NCC, and all the teams that have supported us, all the engineers, technicians, great job at SpaceX. We're very grateful. For mission.
All right, well, good calls there from MLA and CORE.
And we copy all.
Crew excited to be home. All of us on ground happy to have crew back home. Now, teams have been ready and waiting for about 3 nautical miles away, so it's going to take them about 30 minutes to make their way to get the crew inside.
It's about 30 minutes.
So there we can see those two rogue parachutes, which were released, of course, first, and then, you know, they are let go in order to release the mains. That's what we see making their way back to Earth as well, of course.
The whole system comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot do maths.
Sarah, we're in section 3.
So 6
I
months.
think we're in section 2. We can't see very well out the windows.
Well, no, I'm assuming it's just to get me back on board.
And Dragon, your comm is getting pretty hard to hear. Maybe we can have Larry relay some of that.
Yes, Sarah, we're just confirming we've got fog freezing on the windows that we are in stable 1. Certainly feels like it appears to be.
Copy that, Mary, and can confirm we'd see stable 1 as well.
By the way, my thanks to you, everybody, all the people who have supported us around the world. Just amazing job and amazing mission.
Appreciate the words, Mary.
So that was our pilot, Larry Connor, also just expressing his thanks. Now we can see the Dragon capsule. So I just want to, kind of inform a little bit about what those calls were. So we heard the crew basically wanting to confirm stable 1, stable 2. So that's basically just the position that the capsule splashes down in. So stable 1 being this primary upright. Stable 2 would be like it's a little bit more on its side, and that's why they said you can't really tell, can't quite see out the window. I have a feeling they were like, well, based on the way that we're fitting in the sea, we're we think we're this way. So that's just confirmation of the position that false Quindar tone.
Yeah, false Quindar. You hear Quindar's key up.
So the recovery teams are now starting to approach the Dragon capsule.
Dragon SpaceX, we are go for recovery personnel to approach. You can expect personnel alongside in about 1 minute.
Perfect. So there's that safe approach call.
Yeah, so the reason why the recovery team doesn't just rush there, so Dragon is loaded with hypergolic propellants, monomethyl hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide, and they are toxic when you breathe them. So for the safety of the crew, both inside and the recovery team, we wait for Dragon to basically triple check that all of those vents and everything are closed off and there's no venting from the Dragon capsule, like from those Draco thrusters themselves. So that's what that communication was in terms of making sure that we got the okay from the capsule, and then Mission Control gave the okay to the recovery team. And we can see them there. There will be an individual that actually climbs on top of the capsule, and they are placing the harnessing and
the rigging essentially for hoist.
Exactly. The equipment that's required in order to lift Dragon onto the recovery vessel. Infrared shot there of that fast boat, as we call it, approaching, and they're basically doing another sniffing test, essentially, where you can see that the team has PPE on, personal protection equipment, respirators to do a triple check that the vehicle is not releasing any of those toxic hypergolic vapors.
As we mentioned earlier, this is a very, coordinated maneuver, right? The weather has to be right. The area has to be clear. We mentioned how it's important that, other people are not in the area because, this is, as Kate mentioned, you have the safety aspects of the hypergol that you need to worry about, but also just what crew is trying to do there. That's not an easy thing to do in the water. Having done a few boat maneuvers myself, it's not that easy to be doing what they're doing. So having the area clear for these teams to work and make contact with crew, but while also performing these maneuvers is really important. And you can see as well why we had to wait for such a super go for clear conditions and weather on a splashdown day, even with nominal seas like that. This is an operation that takes a lot of attention and a lot of work on ground crew's side.
Here's a question. Do they keep spare supplies of food and stuff? Should the crew, on crew Dragon, should they need to separate and deal with it? Because I know they're trying to announce it, and it's
Now,
excellent.
one thing I want to mention, you know, we have talked about
But
Commander
no, it's also
MLA
nice.
Michael Lopez Alegria, how he has been to space before. This is the first time that he has made a water landing.
You're right.
So,
You're right.
you know, he landed back on land with the space shuttle and the Soyuz. So this water landing, you know, we gotta keep it interesting, right? Gotta you know, get to do something new.
Yep.
So there we can see one of the SpaceX recovery team members has climbed on board Dragon in order to start essentially equipping Dragon with the things that we need in order to lift it or hoist it up onto the recovery vessel.
Right. So on that note, Kate, you know, looking ahead at some of the operations ahead of us, you know, once the team is done rigging, the next big phases of this are really to bring a recovery ship. We're waiting for a
Dragon, SpaceX, com check. Have you loud and clear as well? Just wanted to verify a comm configuration update. For awareness, it appears we have a couple parachutes that are going to be need to be towed out of the way for the recovery ship to approach. So there might be a slight delay to schedule, but we'll get you an update on timing soon.
Copy.
All right, so on your screen, we could see the recovery teams basically lassoing the Dragon capsule in preparation. Now, we did hear a little bit of new information there from SpaceX Core, which is the crew operations and resources engineer, Sarah Gillis, just letting us know that a couple of those parachutes that came down with the Dragon capsule, that, you know, once the Dragon capsule lands, we cut the lines to those parachutes so that, you know, if there is a little bit of wind, the Dragon capsule doesn't get pulled along with the parachutes. Now, those parachutes, we do recover them, and we just heard some information there that we need to basically move them out of the way in order for that recovery vessel to make, the larger recovery vessel, the primary vessel, to make its way to the splashdown site.
Right, which you can see the team's doing there, right? Pulling some of the parachute out of the way. And you know, it's a good call on Core to, you know, have that comm check and then let crew know, hey, there's been a slight deviation to the schedule, all nominal, all's good, but want to give you a heads up.
If I were inside Dragon capsule, I would really appreciate that information because, you know, as we see how the ships, or excuse me, how those boats are moving and how the capsule is moving, that movement is a little less dynamic right now. But a couple minutes ago, I was watching the Dragon capsule, and I thought I would probably be feeling a little unwell.
Right.
With that rocking motion. So, you know, just for mental preparation and stabilization, knowing, all right, I might have 2 or 3 extra minutes to get through this.
Kind of
I
acclimate
can
myself
do this.
a little bit. I can hold on. Right.
Dragon, SpaceX for internal video.
Go ahead, sir.
If y'all are feeling up to it, request permission to come on board via the display camera view only.
Permission granted.
Copy that.
So soon we should be getting a internal view of crew inside the Dragon capsule.
For those that have just recently joined us, after 17 days on orbit, 15 of those days on the International Space Station, we can see that the Axiom 1 crew has returned home to planet Earth. Just a few minutes ago, they made their splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida near Jacksonville. And there we can see our recovery teams working the capsule in preparation for lifting it onto the recovery vessel. And there we have a shot of Mission Control Center. here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, where John and I are located.
Yeah. You know, what I particularly loved, there's a great shot from inside the Dragon. So this is just after splashdown. Shot over the shoulders of Commander MLA and pilot Larry Connor. So they're waiting inside the Dragon to be hoisted up and out.
Yeah, we can see that they have lifted their visors, so that's the clear part there, which is currently on top of their helmet, but during the dynamic portions of the mission, so for launch, for docking, for undocking, and for splashdown, you know, we do ask them to close their visors. So now they're able to open it up, and you know, as we mentioned before, we have been flushing the interior of the cabin as well as the inside their spacesuits themselves with cool nitrox, nitrogen-oxygen mixture, in order to keep the crew comfortable, you know, throughout the recovery process.
It's amazing to me all the work that those suits do. Right, we were talking just what feels like a few days ago during launch about how those suits keep them cool. You know, even just from the drive from launch from the launch pad, or from the suit room out to the launch pad and then up through the vehicle, but all the work that they do while on orbit and then coming back down. Earlier, Kate, when you showed the shot, or when we saw the shot of mission control during splashdown, for those who weren't able to, you know, join us while we were splashing down, I loved hearing the cheers from everybody here. You know, it was something I expected on launch day, but it's moving to hear it on splashdown too. You know, it shows how many people are vested in the entirety of the mission, not just launching, not just on orbit operations, but coming back to, you know, a mission is from start to finish.
Absolutely.
And that was really, really comforting to hear. Early Monday morning here, you know, there were still people standing outside of mission control here.
Oh, 100%.
Cheering it on. I love it.
We wouldn't miss it.
Yeah.
Live view there inside Dragon Endeavour with the AX-1 crew. They have splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean, and the recovery teams are working to prepare the capsule for lift onto the recovery vessel. After Dragon is on the recovery vessel and, you know, fastened down, the teams will actually open up the side hatch and, you know, poke their head in and, you know, get a quick thumbs up from the crew, and you know, one by one we'll see the crew egress or exit from the capsule using that side hatch. So once that side hatch opens, it's actually the first time it's opened since it closed on launch day, because in order to get on board and exit the space station to egress and all that good stuff, we use the forward hatch, the hatch that's at the top of the capsule.
But the nose cone was covering, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the side hatch hasn't been open since launch day. So they got into the capsule on launch day. That side hatch was closed, and so when that side hatch opens today, it's their first breath of fresh air since taking off.
As we noted earlier, it's going to take a bit of time for the recovery vessel to make its way to Dragon. We got a call from Core saying that, you know, we had to get some parachutes out of the way so the ship can make a safe approach. But at this point, the rigging teams are working to make sure that Dragon is ready to be hoisted on that vessel as soon as it gets there.
Absolutely. As we've mentioned before, you heard us say it already today, you heard us say it a ton on launch day. Everything is carefully choreographed when it comes to spaceflight. You know, the fact that the Core communicated to the crew just to let them know, hey, there's a slight delay, or we can anticipate a slight delay. You know, it's all about safety is what it comes down to. The safety of the crew on board, as well as the safety of the support teams. You know, in this case, the recovery teams there in the water with the crew. That is priority number one above all else, and just making sure that everything is planned for step by step. And even in, I don't want to call, you know, the parachutes in the way off nominal, because that is a normal thing to happen, but it wasn't, we didn't plan for it, right?
Yeah.
So, for something like that where it's like, okay, the parachutes are in the way, cool, we have margin.
Dragon, SpaceX for private medical conference.
And you have procedures for that as well.
Absolutely.
Go ahead with CMC.
For awareness,
All right, so we're hearing that we're about 7 minutes out until we get to lift Dragon Endeavor onto the vessel you see there on your screen.
Seems slowly making up towards it.
Arch that individual there standing at the end of the ship, there's an arch above them, and that arch will actually articulate downward, and the teams in the water will attach the harnessing and everything required to hoist or lift Dragon out of the water and into that cradle there. Fun fact, that recovery vessel the fun fact that recovery vessel is named Megan after Megan MacArthur, who was our pilot for the Crew 2 mission. Our other recovery vessel for Dragon capsules, which, as we mentioned before, there's 7 sites around Florida. We have one recovery vessel here in the Atlantic, that's Megan. The other Dragon recovery vessel located in the Gulf is Shannon, for, of course, Shannon Walker, who was the first woman to fly on a Dragon capsule. So we have Megan and Shannon on board in our hearts, and of course in name here with our recovery vessels.
There we can see Megan making a slower approach now, coming up to Dragon Endeavor.
So you don't want to run over that. That would not be very pleasant. Let's leave sinking spacecraft.
Once Dragon splashes down, there's a couple of fast boats. I should preface by saying that the recovery team is about 2 or 3 miles away from the splashdown site. For safety reasons, nobody can be super close, and so the team is situated close, but not too close. And those fast boats, the smaller boats.
Dragon, SpaceX, I copied comm on the whining noise. Do you have any insight of when that started?
I think it started right at splashdown.
Copy that.
It's not really just hearing as it is normal.
I was about to ask you about it. It's fairly high pitch, quite loud, and it varies in frequency a little. It's hard to tell if it's mechanical fan ventilation of some kind, or maybe some kind of aspect of that. It's hard to tell.
So just a little.
Copy, Dragon, we hear it. Likely it is caused by a bilge pump that started at splashdown. We're going to attempt to power that pump off. Let us know if it resolves.
Copy.
All right, so just a little bit of interesting communication there with the crew inside Dragon Endeavor, as well as our team here in Mission Control. So when the crew was speaking, that was Commander Michael Lopez Alegria, the teams here were able to hear background noise. And so obviously the crew inside Dragon Endeavor are able to hear that as well. So that was just a little bit of back and forth describing where the sound may have been coming from, or what it could have sounded like, and it sounds like it might be one of the onboard pumps that activates at splashdown.
Remember, whatever you just did, stop it.
Hey, good work
Copy
around.
all. It was a bilge pump.
There we go.
It's what we do. We solve problems.
Exactly. It's the life of a flight controller. Right?
Absolutely. So the recovery teams are, as I mentioned before, they're positioned close to the splashdown site, but a safe distance away. Upon splashdown, the fast boats make their way out quickly to do the initial safing and preparation of the capsule, making sure that the hypergolic propellants are not leaving any vapors around the capsule. And here we can see our recovery vessel, Megan, making its way slowly but surely to the capsule and its splashdown site. Once again, the capsule will be hoisted up onto the deck into that cradle. And in a very sleek and swift motion, that cradle moves forward toward the platform where we will see the crew egress and head into the medical bays.
So that's going to be interesting to see.
Once again, when that side hatch opens, it's the first time that that side hatch has opened since launch day, which was back on April 8th.
First breath of fresh air since April 8th.
Yes, because if it had opened since then, something would have gone very.
And earlier, Kate, you were mentioning every bit of this operation, I mean, for all of spaceflight, is safety first, right? And when you're this close to the finish line, it's even more critical to, follow those procedures, to
Absolutely
take it slow and steady, right? Everybody wants to get across that finish line right now, but the mission's not over till they're safely back on board and you can open that hatch and get that breath of fresh air, right? So,
For sure.
Those fast boats make that initial contact, and Megan is coming up, in good time, following along with the timeline and making sure that we safely get Dragon back on board.
Yes, there is no rush.
We can see that there are some swells in the water today, but the waves themselves are, almost non-existent. Really small waves there. We can see that skies are mostly blue with some clouds, as we mentioned before, with all of the weather factors that we take into account for, so things like precipitation levels, wind speeds, wave height, lightning in the area. Those are all factors that play into whether or not we get the go for undocking and the go for splashdown, which over the last few days has been the challenging factor for us. As we mentioned before, the crew was originally supposed to be in space for 8 days, ended up being in space for 17 days due to those weather restrictions, essentially, where we just couldn't get go criteria met for those various conditions.
All those variables have to add up to the right direction. And you can have one variable, it's great, we love a little wind, but if you have rain in the area, it makes it really difficult to do those 24-hour go-no-go calls. Okay, so right now it looks like we can see that the recovery teams are preparing to lower the vessel's hydraulic lift mechanism into the water, which will bring the spacecraft into the on-deck translation system known as the nest. So Dragon will remain in the nest during the crew extraction and for the journey back into port. And the capsule is currently being lifted and set on the nest. Then once it's centered and oriented, Dragon will then be translated into the hangar underneath the helipad aboard the ship so that we can open the hatch. Once open, a SpaceX medical doctor will be the first one in to check on MLA, Larry, Aton, and Mark and see if they're ready to egress out of the vehicle.
Of course, that is very important to make sure that, the crew is okay.
So we can see that hydraulic lift has been lowered, and they'll begin to hoist Dragon up onto the deck.
There's that crew member you mentioned who climbs aboard Dragon to ensure that the rigging gets established properly to pull the capsule back in.
Dragon SpaceX, brace for capsule lift.
One of my favorite parts of recovery is watching that individual. It's safe to say that, recovery operations, there's a lot of training that goes into it, especially for that position,
Exactly right.
To stay on top of the capsule as it's moving around and do everything safely.
And accurately, making sure that your hoist system is ready to hoist, right? Which we can see there now.
All right, so the Axiom 1 crew is now out of the water.
Ready it goes.
making their way onto the deck of our recovery vessel, Megan.
You can see the water splashing out of the...
You can see some water splashing out there from the part of the capsule where
That's where
the
the parachutes
parachutes were stowed in. So that now is empty, with the side hatch just above.
So that's not concerning at
So
all.
that side hatch is where the astronauts will egress from. Before we open the hatch, the spacecraft's cabin pressure has to be equalized with the outside environment. And once the hatch is opened, like we mentioned before, that will be the Axiom 1's crew first breath of fresh air since they boarded Falcon 9 at the very start of their mission just earlier this month on April 8th. So there we can see that the capsule is now seated in that cradle, and that cradle will then be pulled what looks like towards us, which is actually towards the front of the boat and closer to the bays.
That ablative shield of the capsule, the TPS, is sitting on what looks like a cradle.
Dragon SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are completing final checks and stand by for translation to the egress platform.
Copy, officer. We're standing by.
So we can see the recovery team there, once again doing testing to make sure that any hypergol vapors have dissipated, that the capsule is not releasing any more of those vapors. As I mentioned before, the propellants that Dragon uses on board, it's different than the rocket propellants. The rocket propellants, we use our RP1 and liquid oxygen, and in order for those to burn, we have an ignition source, which is our TTEB. So, it's like when you light a match, right? There's a flame or a spark, and it's different on Dragon. There is no flame on Dragon. The propellants combust instantaneously whenever they come into contact. That monomethyl hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide, and they're super powerful. That's why we use them on board Dragon for those Draco engines, but they are toxic if you inhale them. So we can see the crew there had their ventilators on, and they're just performing those final tests to make sure that the Dragon Dracos are not venting any of those hypergols. It's pretty amazing to see. It has been amazing to see the pictures while the capsule was, on station. Some of them they don't look real. It's so beautiful, but it is real. And to see, images before splashdown and after splashdown, it's incredible because it just shows, how effective the materials are that we use on that thermal protection system. As I mentioned before, we do replace the TPS for missions. That part itself is not reusable yet. So while on contrast, the interior, the bones, the structure of the capsule, that is reused. So this capsule has now undergone its third recovery, having previously flown on the Demo 2 mission as well as the Crew 2 mission.
Yeah, it really is a testament to the capsule and just the refurbishment process, right? That really allows spaceflight to continue in these days, the reusability aspect. Seeing how clean that vehicle was at launch and still seeing 2 stickers on the inside, now seeing the third one and what it looks like coming back home. It's a testament to that ablative shield because you can see the energy that this is put through on its re-entry. So it'll be exciting to see this go for the 4th one.
Yeah, absolutely. As we mentioned before, the capsule is going the same speed as the space station while it's on orbit, 17,500 miles per hour. And it slows down to about 350 miles per hour during that re-entry phase. And it's just really beautiful to see evidence of that.
So that's coming from the video here that was starting with Axiom 1.
So just for a little bit of orientation, while we have this view still